All right, welcome. Hope you're having a really blessed Monday. Let's give everyone a chance to come on live for the channeling. Get your notification bells. We'll give just a few minutes, so hang in there with me before we start this channeling. Thank you to every one of the subscribers here today. We're going to do a brief Q&A as well. You'll notice that I have subscribers only mode, so make sure you subscribe. So that you can be involved with these little mini channelings and talk to the being that's coming through and get a chance to get your questions answered from them. How's everyone doing? Lilith came through really loud and clear this morning, and I wanted to honor that because that's the person who's here today. We've had so much top tier truth coming in from ascended masters, angelics, and all sorts of beings lately. So I wanted to give us all a chance to sort of see what she had to say. And she started the morning with me by channeling through a message about healing. It's all been about healing these past couple of days with Lilith and Hillel. As well as Metatron, when he's been coming through, he's had some similar themes. And she started this morning, and I posted the first message that I got from her all over my social media. I'm going to repeat it again today because it was just so powerful and relevant to where we are right now. She said, and I'm just going to read it back for how she channeled it. The tendency in modern spirituality is to turn a blind eye to the truth of people's suffering. So how do we do that? I asked her, and she said, you do it when you say, according to the law of attraction, this is your mirror, and you need to see this about yourself or that about yourself, which shames them for not healing. Some people have an idea of the fate or destiny involved in their situation. Some people will not heal at all. Now, this top tier truth is completely the antithesis of what you're seeing out there, particularly in the New Age community. You've been blinded towards the aspect and technology of spirit, and that technology is the miracle, the essence of grace that encompasses your right, your sovereign birthright to have a miracle. And in order to receive the miracle, the human paradox and divine paradox of that requires that you accept the current situation. And sometimes, depending upon the unique karmic involvement, the accessibility to Dharma or the lack thereof, you may have to accept that you're not going to heal at all. Now, this channeling is not here to remove hope from a situation. It's here to provide the powerful, sovereign grace of surrender and the power of acceptance so that cosmic source gets a moment to take over. Because when you accept that your body is absolutely perfect, that your mind is doing so, whatever it's doing so as an act of healing for you and or others in the moment. When you accept that the mind has its place, the body's doing what it's doing because it's supposed to, not because something is inevitably flawed with you, not because you are not whole, not because you are diseased, not because something's wrong. When you hear me on this top tier truth, you will understand that you can no longer turn a blind eye towards yourself, and that you will no longer allow others to turn a blind eye to the truth of your suffering and the reason for its existence. The reason for all suffering on our planet is to remove shame, and to invoke compassion. Suffering provides the opportunity for compassion to arise. When compassion arises naturally for yourself and others, the entire planet heals. So, please ask yourself, is it compassionate when others are shaming you for your body not healing? When you're shaming yourself and thinking that something is wrong, is that compassionate? Is that loving to you from others or from yourself? Is it loving? Is it compassionate for others to blame your condition, your pain, your suffering on your karma, on the law of attraction or any laws of this universe, or on your choices? Is that relevant, and is it helpful, and is it loving? It isn't. This is why I am here today. This dissociative consciousness, hiding under the guise of spiritual development, is perpetuating the trauma cycle for humanity. And with all of your best intentions to help someone or yourself, this makes the suffering worse. Compassion is when we can accept someone right as they are for exactly what they're experiencing without trying to make them different or better. Compassion beckons us to provide comfort, a space of acceptance and surrender, peace and understanding to those who suffer. This is what humanity requires: the self-compassion and compassion for others. You have called it holding space. It is the same technology. Compassion alone will heal the world. And that is my top tier truth that I am sharing with you today. Okay, I promised I would go into some questions from live chat today from our beautiful subscribers. If you like more of these channelings, please hit that subscribe button. It keeps this channel going. I appreciate you so much. First question. Lilith appeared to me during my first ayahuasca ceremony. I know it has something to do with my path of the divine feminine. Can she elaborate more on her reaching out to me and the next step? She said, when I appear to you, there is always an honoring of the divine feminine. But what is that? Divine Mother honors everyone. The mind will say, what do I need to do with it? But that comes in time. You are the gentle touch of love and truth in this temporary illusion. At the time, you were tired and you needed to remember some degree of feminine magic to keep you striving in your own healing and to forward the power of your seeking. In that moment, your mind's goal was attempting to be anything other than love, and you are deeply trapped in fear. And why not? Remember, it's all a simple game, and it's relevant to understand the depth of who you are. Don't worry so much about what it is you are here to do, but how you can serve. When you are focused on serving and giving, all actions toward yourself are temporarily forgotten and healing is done on its own. Besides, it's not the mind that does the healing. And when you're in deep service, healing begins to just take over because you're too busy, worried, and concerned about the effects of the body. And healing is naturally accomplished through the act of compassionate service. In that moment, you needed less action, more service. Sometimes, in our deep, deep need to heal, there comes a time when we spend too much effort, too much action, too much time on the doing of healing. And sometimes it's relevant to forget ourselves for a moment. In service, we forget ourselves for a moment and healing takes over. This question just like goes into the soul. This question, why do I hurt people I connect to, and what is happening to me? That's a big one. Let's see what she says. It is only love that heals. And in this moment, when the mind is crying out for love, the misunderstanding is that it must arise externally. In that moment, the mind becomes frustrated when it is not heard, it is not seen, it is not understood. In that moment, the mind wants understanding and it wants to be understood. It wants knowledge so that it can implement a plan of its own, so that the ego won't die or that the body won't continue to hurt. Knowledge is indeed immediate, and the mind would be tempted to tell you that the knowledge and understanding would create the healing. But what if that isn't true? It is only love that heals, not knowledge. Knowledge may be immediately garnered or transplanted or naturally landing, and that is your choice. But it is not translated through a whole lot of thinking in the mind. Knowledge can only be translated into the deeper wisdom of spirit when one feels safe enough. And what provides safety? Compassion. And when you don't feel understood, you need more compassion. It's not a matter of determining why you hurt people. Consider that the inner child is like a baby. So, a baby, when feeling misunderstood, a toddler, when another person reaches out and hurts, it hurts back. If you were in the sandbox and someone threw a truck at your head, if it hurt badly enough, you might throw it back. And do you ask why? No. Hurt people hurt people. That is the answer and has always been for thousands of years. And understanding the why of that does not provide healing. What you're looking for is for someone to show up and to evoke within you your deepest reactions, your fear of judging others, your fear of being judged and misunderstood by them. What you're looking for is just to be told that it's okay to be angry at the lack of compassion presented to you on this planet, at the lack of understanding, at the lack of being seen or heard or understood. What you're looking for is not for someone to tell you that you're right, but to tell you that your suffering is valid. What you're looking for, in truth, is acceptance. So that's why you hurt other people. And it is an innate ego reaction to protect you from more pain. It doesn't feel good to know the why of these things, but it can feel good to just back away from people when they are hurting you and to learn to hold that space of compassion for yourselves versus being too overly concerned that you will continue to hurt people. This is a time for deep inner solitude, for silence, for grieving, for anger. If you are hurting people, retract from them, bless them, pray for them if you will, forgive them if you must. None of that is required. But what's more important is you holding a space for you to be angry, to grieve, to hold the boundaries, to have solitude, to have rest from the pain that others have caused you, which would be the response, the reaction, the reason for you hurting them. Humans don't naturally just hurt people for no reason. So, you know the reason. Now, forgive yourself. Do what you need to do. Go into silence and rest. Mm. Oh, oh man. Betrayal is a really tough wound that is really relevant right now. So I really feel this next question as well. This one says, I feel so betrayed by my longtime friend. I spoke my truth instead of swallowing it up as usual. Can this be healed? Lilith says, did you think that truth always sounds loving? Truth can be loving without sounding loving, without feeling loving, and it can still be love. Truth comes powerfully, sometimes in light and sometimes in darkness. When humanity can retract and remove their ideas that dark is evil and that light is good, you understand that darkness is a deep, settled, peaceful wisdom, and it requires light. Then you speak, and you've lit up someone else's darkness, and now they are angry that you shined. Now they are hurt that what was unspoken but known between the two of you has finally presented itself in truth. Some people say that time is the healer. You are here to extend your loving thoughts, and your loving thoughts in that moment were truthful, despite the fact that they were hard to hear, hard to accept. The elephant in the room can no longer be ignored when truth is involved. So now you're allowing your truth to express or to manifest in the field of time. Sometimes friendships are meant for a temporal pause or for a permanent end. There is a time for everything, and there is an end to time. Perhaps your time with this friend is complete. Grieve that. If you do not feel safe to extend your most deepest loving treasure of truth to a friend, are they really a friend? Okay, Lilith's hitting the top tier heart truths today. I told her to play nice. Let's see if that continues. Let's see. Dim Fatal said, I was literally crying the words, this is never going to heal, when notice of your life channeling popped in. Yeah. She'll grasp your attention if it's required. Lilith will. Any specific message from Lilith to me when I'm sensing her presence? I'm getting this feeling of a mode of travel, either a car or another mode of travel. And she said that mode of travel is not yours to be concerned about. However, the mode of travel happens. That is specifically for you right now. For those who are here, she gives another message that is also personally relevant to you who ask. It's for you and everyone here. And she said, instead of being overly concerned about how to heal everything, and instead of being overtly concerned about the way to heal the world, could you be truthful with yourself that you only desire healing because you desire comfort? And it may be easy to judge what is uncomfortable, catalyzing to be the deepest path to your healing. And instead of avoiding it, it might be time to understand that the way to heal the world is not by seeking external change, but by finding love in every circumstance. And if you can't, apply forgiveness. What's deeper than forgiveness is acceptance. What's deeper than acceptance is surrender. And what's deeper than surrender is unconditional love. Those who are in pain need compassion. They require boundaries still. They require things for safety. What is it that you need for safety? When you attempt to remove your seeking of the world and to remove your seeking of change for the world, do you do so by considering the truth of why you wish for that change? Remember, the truth of why you wish for the world to be healed is because you're uncomfortable with it. But just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean it's going to change. What changes is you. What changes is your response, your reactions to hatred, to bigotry, to judgment. What changes is you. When you shine your light, your truth upon all of that which is causing you suffering, guess what? Evil runs like a bug from a light. She's giving me this image of the light outside and being outside on the porch in the dark, and you have your porch light and all the bugs coming to it. And they either like it and relish in it. They might get zapped by it. That light might be too hot, or they may flee from it and run away. Evil will run from your light. Don't worry about darkness, but be concerned about your fear of shining your light upon evil. Darkness itself is lit up easily, and darkness is not evil. Darkness is the empty space of fear that you refuse to acknowledge, extending from your own thoughts. What you are afraid of will run when you shine that light of truth towards it. Remember, like a bug from the light. And sometimes the bugs are attracted to the light. What irritates you is attracted by you simultaneously. How does Lilith, next question, how does Lilith affect our personal relationships at this point? She said, I am the part of you that is frustrated with accepting the status quo, accepting stagnation. I am the part of you that will shine a light upon your denial. You may be frustrated, but when love does not grow with you, is it true that the time is over, or is it true that perhaps your denial is being purified? Perhaps the deeper acceptance of your idea of this magical fairy tale love might shift things, or perhaps you bury the idea. You bury the idea that the movies and fantasy books have created for you. Are you a princess in a castle waiting to be saved? You're not Rapunzel. Do not be dissatisfied by love. Create your own. If you feel frustrated, fix it or let go. Love yourself so powerfully that you realize you are only here to extend love to begin with. But denial can never purify the mind. You cannot transcend what you refuse to embrace. Your questions are so powerful, and all of you are being so deeply truthful in the way that you're presenting your questions. This is incredible. I love these questions. This next one says, why do I feel so bitter towards those that won't help themselves? I'm feeling there is no balance of energy and asking too much from me. She said, is that why you're bitter? Or are you deeply upset that you hold no sense of boundaries towards them? Why would they get a chance to ask too much from you? Do you hold the power to say no? Of course you hold the power to say no. You are bitter with yourself for continuing to allow yourself to be in the situation. If you want freedom, be committed to shifting this. Be committed to replacing your erroneous perception of them and your erroneous perception of yourself. Every thought that you've ever made about anyone and anything, if and when it's a thought held in disempowerment, is a thought that is a lie. Be brave enough to no longer accept their lies and to no longer accept yours. That was a brave question, yes. That question, Cynthia, is very kind of broad, sweeping, generalized. We need you to make it more specific because Lilith says it's not that your shadow self is wrong, but do people use their shadow self to give light to continued situations where they could be causing pain and then saying that it's okay because their shadow self has been so repressed? And when it comes out, you say, well, because it's been so repressed, I'm going to just let it fly. It would be irresponsible to cast your shadow around like a child with a water gun for whoever is afraid of the water and to just rant and rave with your shadow self. But how is your shadow self coming out? This is not a matter of judging it as wrong, and it is also not a matter of judging it as right. Yet judgment and discernment is still required. And what time and place and circumstance is the shadow self required? This is not a guidance to repress the shadow self. It's a guidance to be more compassionate with it. Melanie Solis says, what message is she trying to convey to me? She said, only reality can be true, but you have been deeply dismayed and discouraged when attempting to discern what is reality and what is a lie. But reality is simple. There is only love. That is reality, and that is how you know what is real. What is love? Love is truth. Now, the mind says truth feels bad. Sometimes love feels truthful, and people are terrified of truth because they are terrified of love, and they are terrified of love because they are terrified of God. How silly would it be to be terrified of yourself? That is the message I convey to you and to all who listen today, for all who have ears to hear. This next question is a pretty powerful one because so many people suffer from chronic pain and chronic illness. And this was really relevant in her message today, too, because on top of her message about some people won't heal no matter what, and we just have to accept it, there's so much chronic conditioning. And for people who have chronic conditions, immune system conditions, accidents which have left them disabled, etc., we go about the journey initially by trying to fix them. She says, how would it feel to only be loved and accepted? For you to only be loved and accepted by your husband or wife if they were whole, if they could walk, if they could have a proper life with you for what you deemed as proper when you initially married. How loving would it be for her to feel that you were perpetually trying to change her, but all the doctors are saying it's not changing. She is already afraid. Acceptance and compassion is not the only way to help, but it is the most powerful way to help. Your surrender as a spouse is what is required. And if it is meant to heal from that point on, it will. From that point on, it will. And we can't know when. We can't know how. Healing is a matter of grace from cosmic source. Healing is a matter of divine will, not free will. And this is what the majority of humanity refuse to accept. You are already whole. Your acceptance of such is vital. Your acceptance that you are already whole is paramount. It is of deep significance and relevance at this time in humanity that all people, whether you are experiencing illness or whether you are a family of someone, a friend of someone with a chronic condition, it is deeply relevant and significant that you realize that your job is to hold space, not to change them, that your job is to accept them for as they are. If they are in the space to wish for healing, sure, guide them. Hold a space for that. The chances are there's a little bit of hope and a lot of fear, but you can't make them be in a different spot simply because you wish for them to be. Remember, compassion is the ultimate healer for Earth and all of those who reside upon it. Okay. I saw a good question and then I skipped through it. Let me scroll back. So, what will compel anyone to heal if they accept their condition? Where is the progress? She said, your desire for progress is not true, and it is deeply painful for a person who suffers. It is deeply painful for your inner child to continue to wish for you to be something different than how your body is presenting in truth right here, right now. Because the truth about time is that if you are dependent upon the past or the future, you are not in love and you are not in truth, which perpetuates your pain, your suffering. So the idea is not to compel someone to heal, but simply to accept and to be compassionate for whatever arises. And then, if their body wishes to heal, if their mind wishes to heal, it will do so in its own time. And that is your progress, because that is the truth. But the desire for anything outside of truth and love is not progress. That is simply your ego wanting more power, wanting to change something that you hold no power of, because this is God's business, not the mind's. Healing is God's business. There are several conditions to be present within to create a beautiful environment for healing, and the first condition is grace. And no, that does not reside within the religious structures. The conditions for grace are compassion. The conditions for grace are prayer. Prayer is only to communicate with a cosmic source. It has nothing to do with what happens inside of your churches. Yet prayer, because you are so terrified of it, you have deeply misunderstood and you have deeply forgotten its power because you are so afraid of religion. But prayer is still the answer, whether you call it meditation, yoga. What do you call it? Communion? What do you call prayer? Prayer is simply your lifeline to your own soul. Feel your suffering and know that your healing is imminent when you no longer run from it. I think I saw a question, but I skipped it over, and I'm just going to ask her what it said. It said, how can you hold both love and truth simultaneously? She said, because love and truth are one. They are not two separate things, and they are not things. They are essences. Hmm. All right. Oh, that's so beautiful. This person in chat said, "My body started healing when I surrendered and truly integrated what I was created, that I was created exactly how I was created to be." Okay. And once I realized that, the body followed. That's it. That is typically the nature of healing, she says, is that when we stop attempting to make our body do what we want it to do, and to make our body be how we want it to be, and to make our mind function how we want it to function, something beautiful happens. And that is the nature of the miracle. And then we no longer fight our thoughts, right? Mm. Uh, Next question. How do I heal myself or exist wisely with some really painful internal thoughts about ourselves? PTSD type responses. She said, hold a space for a loving response, even during PTSD, by just letting your inner child know that you are not leaving. The biggest part of PTSD is when you feel betrayed and when you feel that you will be left alone. But when you remind your inner child that you are not going to leave her, that you are not going to leave her alone with her pain, this is the deepest way to heal from PTSD suffering and from its responses and reactions. Um, I want you to go deeper with me with this. This person says how to show compassion with a partner whose parenting is much more strict and intense than yours. Um, because truth does not always feel loving. It may be an insidious mind response to presume that another person's parenting style is less loving than our own. Are you projecting? That would be my first question. Am I projecting? Ask yourself that. Am I projecting? What is projection? Projection occurs when you psychically attempt to throw out of your ownership everything that you have judged as being good or bad, despicable, disgusting, unworthy of yourself or your children. Projection is an act in which you psychically attempt to throw out your ownership of something that you do not want. And you refuse to own that. You throw it out like trash, something that you have judged as improper or painful or unworthy. But people who understand the depth of love also understand that love can sometimes be strict. Are you projecting? Or is the person projecting? It could be that. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So the projection of anger in the response of verbal abuse, yelling, um, that's the other person projecting in this case, she says. And in a sense, the only thing that's loving in that moment is to retract. When physical or verbal abuse is involved, and yes, yelling is considered verbal abuse, in that moment, children in particular and the inner child of adults require peace. They require safety. In that moment, the loving response would be to retract and to just say, I think we all need a break. I think we all need a break. That would be the most loving thing to do for the person yelling and being abusive and the person who is in the presence of the yeller, it would be important to retract from that pain momentarily. It would be irresponsible of you as a parent to allow that. So you must remove yourself and the child from verbal abuse or physical abuse. Just because people are in pain does not mean that they get to project that outward and sling that around like a weapon. Slinging that around like a weapon. And then come back and say, I would like to hold space for you. I would like to understand what you feel. Now, the coming back part is really important. It's not necessarily to consider that it's right or wrong that the parent is yelling. It's that after safety is maintained, which is the important first step in parenting, there must be communication so that the person who is angry gets a chance to lovingly speak about their pain or to neutrally speak about their pain and to enter a space of peace with you where you can finally receive and understand how they feel outside of their abuse. Now, that in your discernment should not condone abuse. That's very important to understand. Abuse should never be condoned. Find safety and then communicate. How far does this advice go? Not very far if there's physical abuse, not far at all if there's sexual abuse or physical abuse. But for verbal and mental abuse, find some degree of peace and safety and speak behind that boundary so that that person always knows that they too will find a space of compassion, which you will hold for them. You will hold that space for them. There is a moment where a person can hold a space for healing, and then you and only you know as a parent, as a wife, as a partner, when that space has passed. And there is a lot of karmic effect in this. So be mindful of this as well. Be very mindful of this as well. How much karmic effect is too much? Only the two of you know, but protect your children, protect yourselves. Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. She said, thanks for the advice. He's trying to be more patient. He's very loving, but just needs a little more sensitivity with the girls. Yeah. And you also said he's had a tough mom. Yeah, here is something that Lilith told me. I too had a tough mom who was constantly yelling or throwing things or just being angry. And when I became a mom, I found myself not having enough time, not having enough presence for myself, time for self-care, etc. And I became a yeller for a little while. And one day Lilith said, they will remember that. They won't remember all the trips, all the ways you supported their passions. They won't remember all the hugs that happened afterwards. They just will remember this. So do you want them to remember that? Just a question she asked me. She said, they're always going to remember the yelling. So if you stop now, maybe they will then begin to remember your legacy as a loving mother. And that was the best advice she could have ever given me that I passed to you today. To just be able to say, okay, do I want them to remember the anger or do I want them to remember the forgiveness? Do I want them to remember yelling or do I want them to remember love? Because the brain is deeply traumatized and that trigger sticks. So it must be time at some point to forgive that and let go so that our children can remember us as loving mothers and fathers. All right. I don't believe I understand your question. This next question says, how do you deal with all the abusers coming to you in spirit? I don't have abusers coming to me in spirit. Do you direct that towards Lilith? How does she deal with abusers coming to her in spirit? Or do you mean that because spirit is not abusive. She says people confuse spirit for soul. Soul holds karma. Spirit only holds dharma. There can be no abuse in spirit. So a lot of times this is a matter of semantics, but vocabulary in particular is very important right now because spirit is love, pure love. No abusers coming to us in spirit. That wouldn't be true spirit. So I need you to refresh that question, kind of rephrase it. Tell me what you really mean. Lilith doesn't feel the effect of people's karma. She doesn't feel the effect of people's hatred. She doesn't feel the effect of people attempting to abuse her or condone abuse because she is spirit. And she knows that that's their stuff in their soul that's going to create karma for them. But Lilith is in pure dharma. So she will not take another person's pain and own it as her own. Okay. She says, for me personally, support here from the same people. Abusers. Sometimes when I'm channeling and I'm also trying to understand, it's like two different areas of a brain. So I'm really just still not understanding. Take me more deeper into your question. What do you exactly mean to ask her? Question to Lilith: how does existence being become a becoming? She says, does the caterpillar ask questions about the chrysalis? It has its place. The caterpillar never questioned itself as a mere worm that needed to be or become something different. There was no becoming. The becoming never happened when time never existed. There is no becoming. You already are. And the caterpillar never questioned the chrysalis because it recognized that all of the becoming was temporal. And it recognized that it already is existence itself. Oh, we might have to take that question and close on it. I'm so sorry for your loss, Troy, who says to Lilith, what happened to souls who choose suicide? My son just did this and I need answers. Wow. That loss, that grief is valid. And you as a father need space for that, for Lilith to extend her compassion to you. And she says what would not be compassionate is for you to determine why it happened or what happens after it happened. That would not be compassionate because there are just too many answers. There are too many personal and impersonal circumstances to that. But what you do need to understand is that it is beyond the nature of contracts and simultaneously contracted. It is beyond the nature of understanding. And as long as we are in the container of the human mind, we will never understand the why to that. Answers won't heal this. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you, just me, Pamela, from what I understand, just looking as a medium that sees beyond the veil. I agree with her that there aren't answers, but I can give you some of the circumstances that happen. What typically happens after a person commits suicide point, it's like a reset button in the consciousness of that person's karma, but it's a bit of a rest when a person needs a rest, but that does not excuse them from the karma that will be waiting. They get a rest. That's why we call it the reset button, but it doesn't condone anything. It's just that we can never understand the darkness that occurs that requires such a rest for the human soul and the human mind and the human body. Sometimes kids come into this world and there's such a beautiful starseed that they're not here long in it. And we as parents can never understand or really even attempt to forgive that pain. Right? Sometimes that soul is so much more beautiful, and this world would just eat them alive and cause so much more pain. So they come, and their death presents an awakening for us. Perhaps it prevents the opportunity for other family members to forgive each other, to live in peace. There are so many circumstances that don't really make this better or heal it in terms of the why and the soul contract, because it is a contract, but it's also beyond the contract, as Lilith has stated. And what's really important to understand in this time is that there are just so many reasons that are beyond our comprehension that we may never know why, but to understand that that being has never left, that they're merely resting, just resting. The mind, the container of the soul, needs a rest from something, from some kind of pain that could have never been healed from even the most perfect parenting, Lilith says. So in that moment, you as a dad deserve a rest, a deep rest, some time to grieve. Don't let anyone ever tell you that your grief should stop or that it's time to stop grieving. But your love is absolutely eternal. And his love for you is absolutely eternal. And that cannot be taken from you. And that cannot be taken from them. The idea that our loved ones would be punished is only used whenever someone's trying to prevent pain. And then it's a story that turns back around on people. When we say, don't do that or you'll go to hell, don't do that or you'll suffer in the afterlife, that only turns around on you. It turns around, and then that fear is being used to prevent people from that rest that perhaps they needed. And we'll never know why they needed it. It doesn't make the tragedy right or wrong or good or bad, but it does require your grief. It does require your love. There's no legitimate reason to make this okay. There's no why that I can give you, she says, that is going to help your heart. Only compassion will heal it. Of course, he's in a good place, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And if they do, forgive it and walk away. Bless them and understand that that is their misunderstanding. Of course, he's in a good place. Of course he is. Don't let anyone tell you that lie that he's going to be punished for it. Do you believe in a punishing God? Of course you don't. Do you believe that children, innocent children, deserve to be punished? Of course you don't. Don't fall for that lie from the destroyer. That's what she calls evil. She calls it the destroyer, and she calls Satan the ultimate destroyer. Are you going to fall for that trap? Of course you're not. You know better. You know he's resting. You as a father know that he's in a good place. Yes, love does not punish. Exactly. Someone said that in chat and she was just confirming you. Yeah. I can tell you what I've seen as a medium. Just me, Pamela, as a medium. I've seen people go and rest, like what I sense that he's doing. I sense that Lilith is right and that he is resting. And then I've seen them immediately come back because time does not exist. They could be resting for thousands and thousands of years in human time in beautiful celestial kingdoms. And typically the soul will get bored and want to come back and find dad and mom and find the soul family again. So it does. But that could be a blink of a moment in our time. I've seen them come back as cardinals. There's something specific about that where they go and rest and remember, because time doesn't exist. That could be thousands of years in our perception of time, that a person is resting in what we call heaven. Lilith doesn't care what you call it. Dolores called it the resting place. Some people call it the afterlife. They rest. That's the first thing that happens for a soul with trauma, is that it rests. It recovers from the trauma. And then in a blink of an eye in our time, because time isn't real, suddenly we see a cardinal come in the yard and we receive messages, or suddenly there's a newborn baby born into the family and we can see our child's eyes in it. I remember the first time I saw that, I was like 20 something, and I was practicing mediumship professionally for someone. And it was this really strongly Jewish family, and this beautiful Jewish grandma, and she had it in her mind that the soul of this baby, who I was reading for the mom of the baby, and she was a friend of mine, and the grandmother had it in her mind that that soul was her child. And it was true and also not true. It was like I could see the soul had blended, that lost child from the grandma had blended with the soul of the new baby that was my friend's baby. And I could see them both in there coexisting and pretending to be one, and also they are one, right? So it was a beautiful thing to see for the first time. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes they immediately incarnate and become a walk-in and come into an adult soul. You never know how it's going to be. You never know how it's going to land. And there are so many other options. Along with that, I'm just giving you a few of the popular options, the things that I've seen as a medium that would be common for the soul to choose. But what you need to know as a dad is that it's always, he has a choice. Don't believe some of these false light spiritual teachings that are out there. What I mean by that is not Lilith judging them as false light, but this teaching where people say there's this white light that they go to and then they're trapped and these things happen. And that would take your power away. That would take your choice away to believe that. And any spiritual teaching that takes away your free agency choice is not a loving teaching and is not likely a true teaching. So remember that too, that your child has a choice, regardless of the consequences. When I say consequences, I mean there is, an action and a reaction to everything. There's a natural consequence, not a punishment, a consequence. So it's like, because he did that, his soul needs rest. That's a consequence. That's just an effect of the circumstance, not a punishment. He has a choice. And we cannot know beyond standard psychic mediumship unless you become a medium, or you connect with his soul and you get a message from him directly, or an idea with this. You kind of connect with them and he tells you what his choice is going to be. You won't know. You won't know until you do. So, Sammy Smith, I don't know what you mean by that, but I'm not giving anybody any ideas. Not for sure. This is beyond what I could do. I'm just a human sharing a teaching from an entity, a being, ascended being. That's all that I am. I'm just the messenger, but they have their own choices. I don't have that power to give anyone any ideas. The soul has its own choices that are much more powerful and beyond anything I could say or do. And it's like completely up to them. Nothing I say could prevent that choice. Do you understand? So we're going to go. I love you. Thank you. And I will see you really, really soon. Thank you for liking and subscribing. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate subscribing to this channel if you like it. If there's someone you wish to hear from, let me know in the comments. Patrons, you make this channel possible. So thank you so much for being a patron. That link is at the top if you're curious and you want more. from my Patreon channel. For only $13, you can get so much more than what I do here weekly. And it goes back all the way to 2017. So it has hundreds of channelings that you likely have not seen. And we do have a loyalty offer coming up soon for patrons as well. So hang in there. Hang in there. You're about to get something really powerful coming up in August. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.